Amazing. That's quite a resume, isn't it?
I guess so. I
Uh,
should say 35 million of those were from one video, which was
okay.
about the Irish border. It was a comedy we did for BBC about a Brexit comedy, and it was about moving the border slightly further away from Northern Ireland so that Northern Ireland got bigger. And the amount of Americans who really loved this border comedy stuff, it was incredible. Trump and the Mexico border gave us 35 million views.
Wow. What year was that when it came out? If you
Between Brexit vote and Brexit happening, whenever that was. Feels like a lifetime ago.
2016, I would say.
Yeah, but yeah,
Somewhere.
18, I think maybe.
Which is aligns with the Trump election
Yeah.
deadline. Oh, okay. Karen, I would like to first ask you, what is your connection to Wales, where you were born in Wales?
I was born in Wales, in Pontypool, while my mum was visiting her mum because my dad was away in Germany in the RAF. So I actually should have been born in Manchester. That's where we lived. And then we moved here when I was about 1, and I've lived here my whole life. So, yeah, born and bred in Wales in the most technical sense. But yeah, I'm a very proud Welshman, so pleased to be here.
Absolutely. And Pontypool is like valleys, isn't it?
I mean, I was born there. I didn't live there.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
Torvine.
Yeah. Anyone from Pontypool here? No. Okay.
No one
Um,
in? I can't believe it.
what are your? I'm very interested to find out what are your roots as a director. Did you always wanted to be a director for film and TV, mostly like comedy? What's sort of like a little bit your path into TV writing and directing?
Yeah, I think writing actually was what I really wanted to do. My mum has a school report framed that when I was like 11, and and it said, Keri has expressed an interest in writing films and television. Can you tell him to do something more realistic? That was kind of the vibe in those days in Wales. There was no industry in Wales at the time, so and working class person from a working class family, what are you going to do? How are you going to do that? So yeah, so I don't remember at 11 years old saying I wanted to write. I don't know what would have made me say it. Probably Monty Python or Blackadder or something. But yeah, so that was always the thing, and it was always comedy for me. I just never. My dad doesn't say much, but he used to give me like his Monty Python vinyls to play and show me all the films apart from The Meaning of Life. I wasn't allowed to see that because it was a bit too rude. But yeah, so it was always, I had this influence in Carry On films, which were, you probably won't know, but iconic British, very bawdy, rude. So a lot of my founding was rude humor, basically.
Oh, okay. And you talked about Monty Python. Was that you used them as a reference when you first started writing your scripts? Because a lot of like comedians that I speak to, they use Monty Python, especially John Cleese.
Such a cliche.
It is, isn't it?
No, I am. Yeah, I actually wrote my dissertation on Monty Python.
Oh, did you? Okay. What was it about?
I got a 2-1. How do you define the humor of Monty Python, which ruined my enjoyment of Monty Python, but surprisingly there were some answers to it. So I'm not going to go into it now. If you want to read it, it's probably somewhere in the library.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was, definitely an influence. Like I love their surrealism. I like silliness, like James. Like I love James's work. I really like the silliness and silly ideas and just fun. So the work I do is like I tends to be subverting something, like subverting a well-known idea or a well-known trope, or So for example, Supergran, although that wasn't my idea initially, but I love this idea of it's a gran with superpowers. Like it's a ridiculous idea in terms of like a movie. So I just thought it could be a really fun thing to do, and then lots of other things I've done have been the same, where you just kind of go, what's a funny, like I've written this thing called John Chimneypot, which is about Santa being a working class Welshman. So I just thought it's kind of a funny idea if he like just runs a factory in Cardiff and, obviously no one can know who he really is, and he just wants people to know, no, I'm Santa, like I'm, but he's just got to be, he's like a normal working class guy. So it's subverting these ideas that are like, well-known tropes. That's definitely something, and that absolutely came from like Life of Brian and Holy Grail and things like that.
Yeah. Did you go to film school to learn directing? What's your
I
education path?
came to, I say here, but went to University of Wales College, Newport, as it was in those days, before it became a proper university. So I went there. It was a film and TV was the course. It was very art house based. I didn't really fit in because I wanted to make commercial comedies and were told to watch Citizen Kane a lot and stuff, which, don't get me started on Citizen Kane. But yeah, I wanted to, make the Goonies and things like that. And that wasn't really, it's not a criticism of the course. It's a criticism of the industry at the time. There was you couldn't be a genre filmmaker in the UK. You had to be an art house filmmaker, and it's kind of still a bit like that, unfortunately. But yeah, it's I just wanted to make genre films and commercial films and films that hopefully would gain an audience and people would see and enjoy.
Yeah.
That was always the dream.
And were you writing your stuff at the time and trying to make a little bit kind of like James style, just writing your stuff, trying to make it happen?
Yeah, just writing and directing, and totally agree with James. That was the advice I always gave to myself. I was never as prolific as James, but I was like, make something new every year, at least one new thing, whether it's a film or write a feature screenplay, or that was my commitment to myself. While I was working just like office jobs and stuff, I was like, make that commitment to yourself to output something new every year, because you got to be in it to win it. You got to, if you want to win the lottery, you got to buy a ticket. If you don't create something new, then you're not gonna get that. And what I've learned since is it's so much about momentum. This industry is so much about momentum and like heat, as they call it. It's not sexual heat, obviously, but it's just really, you've got to keep making stuff and building this kind of head of steam where people go, oh wow, that person's really making loads of cool, interesting stuff, and hopefully something will get you over that line.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You have a film that's on Netflix, Convenience. I just wanted to ask you, how did that opportunity to direct Convenience come about? And what was the experience for you? Was it your first like comedy feature that you directed?
Yeah, my only comedy feature that I directed. We made it for like no money, like £80,000, which is a lot of money, but for a feature film is not a lot of money. And it was funded by a guy who had a load of Domino's pizza franchises in London. The producer is a great. You just knew people, like people with money, not millionaires, but like he knew people not billionaires, but he knew people with money in their pocket. The downside was we had to cast that guy in the film and have his van pull up in full frame, and then he had to come in and, hang on, where's this going out? Because he had to act in it and everything, which wasn't so great. But yeah, that came about because I did assistant directing on a low budget film for someone else. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, saw it as an opportunity. I was like, this person's got money to make a film, and he's got good cast in it. So, and he offered me you can either be the first AD or you can be the script supervisor. Basically, just he was doing us a favor. He was getting his friends and peers in, which I really appreciated. So I was like, okay, I'll be first AD. Didn't really want to do it, but I just knew it'd be an opportunity. And then we spent 2 weeks in Swansea shooting this in the rain outside, and it wasn't very fun. But at the wrap party, I pitched an idea to the producer, and he loved it. And then we developed stuff for a few years, and then eventually he had this opportunity for Convenience, and he had a deal actor already attached, who I'm sure everyone knows, one of the best actors in the UK, and it was just like an opportunity too good to miss. And then we got Vicky McClure, who was already a double BAFTA winner at the time. And the reason we got her was because she was in love with a Welshman. So she'd literally just fallen in love with a Welsh guy and was like, oh yeah, I'll do a film in Wales. So it's amazing how these things work out.
So the project was sort of casted, quote unquote?
So, so we had a deal, and Ray was the producer as well as one of the actors, and it came from a really, for Ray, it was like he was, a British Asian actor who only ever got cast as a terrorist, and he was like, I'm sick of it, and I want to make a film where I'm just a role where my race is not important. So that's where what he wanted to do, and he knew a deal, so he bought a deal in, and so I was just really lucky. I was just like, that was literally winning the lottery, like getting to make a film. I'd made a few shorts. One of them had been Welsh BAFTA nominated, but I hadn't really done loads. But as it was such a low budget film, they weren't going to get a big director to do it. So, I just felt really lucky. And then it was a really intense shoot, all night shoots in a petrol station in Gorsinon, and it was an existing petrol station as well. So we had to go in after they closed and then be out before they opened. And the people of Gorsinon were delighted that this petrol station had now become 24 hours and were coming in all the time, and we were filming. And there was one particular day where this guy came in. He was pissed out of his head, and he was being chased by people in high-vis jackets going, no, we're filming, you can't. And he's just like, tell someone who gives a shit. And he went and picked up a top shelf magazine. Took a while choosing as well, because obviously a very, very specific tastes. And he took the top shelf magazine over to the counter where Vicky McClure was sat, with a big camera in front of her, totally ignoring the whole thing. And we were just like, you can't, this is we're not open right now, and tell someone who gives a shit again. Then out comes the garage owner, Keith, who was about 4.5 foot, and he had a shotgun, and he's like, I give a shit. It was literally like it was better than anything in the film. I was like, this is incredible. Like, why aren't we filming this? But if you're a petrol station owner in Gorsinon, you need to have a shotgun behind the counter. So, as I found out. So, yeah. So, it was an amazing experience. It was really hard, but I was still doing a day job at the time, in an office. I booked 4 weeks off work. We shot it. We shot the last day in Soho illegally. Didn't have permits. We just kind of shot it. I don't encourage anyone doing that. But we got the scene we needed. And then I drove all the way home, went straight to work, nearly crashed. I wouldn't encourage that either. So, but it was one of those things I just felt like it was an opportunity I couldn't miss. And it changed everything. It got me an agent, and it got me TV work and stuff like that.
And you won a BAFTA off the back of that.
Yeah. So I very carefully write on my CV Welsh BAFTA winning, because it sounds like I won a real BAFTA.
Yeah.
But I'm Welsh, so I can say I'm a Welsh BAFTA winning. But it was actually a BAFTA Cymru, so yeah. But it's still good. A diet BAFTA.
I wanted to ask you, how has winning that BAFTA, at the end of the day, still a BAFTA, has helped you in advancing your career as a director?
I don't think that particularly really made a difference. I think it's your work that helps. So, convenience. Took a while to get TV work off eventually, because it's like two entirely different industries, film and TV. But eventually, when I got some TV work, that was more because of the work I'd done, because of convenience and because of shorts I'd done and things like that. So yeah, it was. I think that's really, and then again, momentum, as I talked about. When you get a TV job, you tend to get another TV job, and but it's just getting that first one. And it took me like 5 years after making a feature film, which won a BAFTA and sold to Netflix. It took me 5 years to actually get a TV job. So and everyone's like, oh, he's not experienced enough, and can he be able to handle the schedule of a TV shoot? It's like, I shot for 4 weeks in night shoots in Gorsinon with a psychopath with a shotgun. I think I can handle a TV shoot.
You have directed for different streaming platforms, Sky, BBC Northern Ireland, BBC One Wales. The directing for these different, let's call it content provider, changes the way you approaches your projects?
TV directing and film directing are really different things, definitely. Because in TV, the director is not the author, whereas in film, they're considered the author rightly or wrongly. But I think it depends what the show is. So Tourist Trap, which I did, which was a Welsh semi-improvised comedy. It was the first the first commission
in 20 years.
In 20 odd years, in Wales. But it was like it was based on this show called Scot Squad, or based on the process of this show called Scot Squad, which they do in Scotland, funny enough. And that was like semi-improvised. So it was that production company that brought this idea to Wales, partly because it's cheap, so that's why BBC Wales went for it, because it's semi-improvised. But it's entirely different process. Like, there's no script. Like the script is like a paragraph for every scene or sketch, and that's it. And then you just cast some funny people, and then me and the funny people try and work it up into something, in about 5 minutes before we go and shoot it.
Were you heavily involved in the casting project as well?
I actually wasn't. I wasn't on board at that point. They didn't have a director, so they cast it. The producers cast it, but luckily they cast it brilliantly, and with some like all the best Welsh stand-ups basically.
Yeah. Because you direct all the episodes, don't you?
Yeah. And we did 2 series, and we did a rugby special, and that was fun because we did it on the day of of Wales playing South Africa, and they let us in the stadium, and we managed to sneak one of the characters. So one of the characters was kind of a blagger. He worked in the corporate department. He was always blagging his way into things. So that whole episode was him blagging his way onto the pitch to sing like Calon Lan and stuff with all the choirs, and we did it for real.
Yeah.
So it's like reality and fiction blurring like all at the same time. That was stressful doing that, because you don't get another go. You got one chance of getting that right. But the show itself was just the most fun ever, and a bit like James was saying about doing stuff with your friends. I mean, I didn't know a lot of these people before, but we would just be kind of crying, laughing, and like look at each other going, we're getting paid for this. This is ridiculous. Like we're just dicking about, making each other laugh. Like we're getting paid. It's ridiculous. It's just. And we also did a big scene about poo as well, so it's definitely a running theme.
Do you think that show could come back? It's such a brilliant show.
I don't know. Yeah, obviously I'd like it to. Yeah, I don't know. It's back on iPlayer suddenly out of nowhere. I don't know why. So maybe they're getting everyone ready to do a new series.
Fingers crossed. What can people expect from Supergrand? Because that topped the Brit list, curated list of the best unproduced screenplays. Are you currently still writing it? Is it ready to go into pre-production? What's the current state of the script?
Yeah, so best unproduced screenplay means like best loser, the best film that nobody wants to make. But no, the Brit list is a really cool thing, and it came completely out of nowhere, which was obviously always a nice surprise. I didn't even know there was like a winner. Like I just thought it's just a list, but they were calling them out. They said, "Oh, we're going to call them out in order," and I was like, "Oh, there's an order. Okay, well, mine's a family action comedy. Like that's going to be bottom of the list compared to all the very impressive art house or like much more worthy things." And they kept calling names out, and then mine was last. So I was like, "Oh wow, this is crazy." But it's amazing because it's like a comedy got some love. Like that was the thing I was just kept saying. I can't believe a comedy's got some love from the industry because, But it's it's a big family adventure film, very expensive, which is probably why it's not been so easy to finance. But off the back of the Brit list, we've got some people interested in America, so it's kind of doing the rounds out there now.
You're pitching it to production companies at the moment.
Yeah, studios in America, because
America.
they've got the money to make it, I suppose. Yeah. And Paramount were really keen, but Paramount are in a complete chaotic state where everyone's getting fired. So unfortunately, they can't do it. So it's now in all the other studios. So
yeah,
that's the other thing with this industry is like someone can love it, and then the next day they're fired. So you're like, oh, yes, brilliant, we're going to make this. Yeah. We got a verbal green light from another place, I won't say where, and then the person got fired about 6 weeks later. You're like, oh, okay.
How do you manage that sort of like expectation as of someone that's like in close contact with those production companies, and you're getting a yes in one day, and then a potential no or definite no the day after?
I don't think you can manage that. I mean, in my head, I'd paid off my mortgage. I was like living in Italy. I was like, this is incredible. Because my fee from this is going to be banging, and then like it didn't happen. So yeah, it's you go, oh okay. No, you just with this industry, you can't ever, you've got to enjoy the little victories, but also you just got to accept the process. Like it's not, until the money's in the bank, there's no,
There's no-
and you don't do it for the money. Genuinely, you don't. Like, obviously, you think about that when someone says they're going to greenlight a film. But I wrote Supergrand because it was a TV show when I was a kid, and I loved it, and I couldn't believe the rights were available, and I was able to pick up the rights myself and all that. And B, I just thought it's like escapism. So when I'm writing that stuff, I love it. It's escapism. It's just you disappear into a silly world, like the bad guy in it. It's like it's dealing with like some big themes, but it's like the bad guy in it is like ludicrous. He's a ridiculous character, but it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun idea, and you can just kind of go crazy and not think about. And I wrote it not thinking about a budget, which is always fun. So I was just like, I'm just going to do it for myself, and if someone wants to do it, great.
Yeah.
And that's why I tend to write most of my things like that, where you just go, well, just have fun writing it, and I think that's the only way to do it. You can't try and second guess the industry, because if they're making loads of, like at the moment, like every meeting I have, people say they want Hijack, they want the new Hijack, they want something that's like Idris Elba's Hijack. They're also making series 2 of that, by the way, so it can't be Hijack, but something like Hijack that's not Hijack. But you know that if you spend ages trying to come up with an idea like Hijack that's not Hijack, it's a cruise liner that gets hijacked this time, you know that by the time, even if you did it and you wrote it and all that, they would have moved on, and now they'd be like, oh, now we want something about werewolves, So you can't second guess. You just got to write the things you love and hope that luck and the right person in the right job loves it, doesn't get fired. The timing is right. The industry wants it. The money's there. All those things. It's a really. But if you think about all that, you'll go mad. So you just got to go. I'm just going to write this because I love it.
Sounds like a lot of things you can control, right?
Yeah, exactly. Worry about the things you can control.
I want to ask if people want to ask a question to Keri here in the room. Does anyone here has got any question? If not, that's fine, because we're actually just on time, and we'll be starting at 7:30 the screening once again in the cinema room. So if anyone has a question, do it now or never.
I've obviously
there's
explained
the person
myself
I was
very
asking.
well.
Johnny?
Oh, not quite. See, you heard that, and I didn't have a mic.
Oh yeah, can you hear me? Right. So yeah, this is about a question about music, and as a director, how involved you get with the music process and decision making of that?
I think it depends what you're doing, because you normally can't afford the music you want. As a writer, I do a Spotify playlist for every single thing I'm working on, specific to like the tone or the mood that I want to create. So like, if it's like a family action adventure, I'll have a very specific playlist for that. And so I've got loads and loads of different Spotify playlists for different things I'm writing. I've written things, or things, or directed things with a view of like, I want to get that song, and then I could just never afford it. But there's definitely, I'd love to have that opportunity to be able to have the back catalogue. I mean, when we did like Tourist Trap, you got the BBC Library, which is pretty good. But even that, like, my brother's in a band, and they're pretty, they're like a folk band, but they're pretty well known in the folk circles. And I wanted to put one of their songs, and they'd been on BBC, and I couldn't clear that. I was like, but I could clear like Super Furries. So, but that's great when you've got that library to be able to choose from. Yeah, that's really fun.
Right. So sometimes you can afford the cost of it, but in other times where you can't, you just got to make do with what you can get. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think it's just like, so I've worked with like composers before, who've been, at a similar level where, when I was doing like a short, there was a composer he wanted to move from theatre into film, so he'd done a lot of theatre composition, and then he was looking to move to do like more film stuff, so it was kind of mutually beneficial. He needed a film and I needed a composer, and that was great and really worked. And then like with Convenience, we kind of cleared. We had no money, but the producer's brother-in-law was a composer, and so he composed some stuff, and we also cleared some different tracks from like different bands, like my brother's band and my friend's band and other bands that were easy to clear. But I think it's like it's hard. You can get too wedded to it as well. It's like actually whenever you're in an edit, you can put a track on. You're like, this is it. This is the moment. It's perfect. This track is amazing. It's selling everything. Selling this mood and all that. And then they're like, yeah, you can't afford that. And you go, oh, okay. But yeah, I think it's like everything. The composer or the bands, they're like other collaborators. And you probably need to have people in your sort of sphere. Although. I watched a short film yesterday called Thunder Road, which became a feature, and in that, when it was a short, the whole thing is based on Bruce Springsteen's Thunder Road, and it's like a guy giving a eulogy, and he ends up singing and dancing to Thunder Road because that was his mum's favourite song, and he made the whole short without the rights to Thunder Road, and like he got it into Sundance, and they were like, "Oh, have you got the rights to Thunder Road?" He's like, "No." So he wrote an open letter to Bruce Springsteen, who incredibly said yes. And the only reason he said yes was he wasn't allowed to profit off the short film. So the short film is free to view on Vimeo. He still went and made a feature, so I guess he profited off that. But, maybe he paid for Thunder Road in that one. But yeah, so sometimes you get lucky and you can be really clever and, you can have an amazing song and, obviously if you've got any connections to the musician or something. But I think it's just, I always try not to be too wedded to anything because you just never know if you're going to be able to afford it or not.
Thank you.
Dun, 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 dun.
You mentioned that you had a Spotify playlist playing when you wrote things, or you've made a Spotify playlist after you wrote something. What other tricks do you use for writing and kind of keeping your... Because I have a tendency to like go off on one and then come back the next day and go, this is all rubbish. And I need things to like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you lose track of what you were trying to do originally, which might be a happy accident and go somewhere cool that's even better, but it also might not be. So what other tricks have you got for like setting the tone, I guess, for what you're trying to write and seeing it through to your final piece or whatever?
Watching films that are in that kind of tone as well sometimes. Obviously you've got to try not to be too influenced by it, but definitely do that. I normally do that before I start writing. Just try and like by osmosis, see if that tone just goes into my head and and then like I'm a really, I don't know, my brain's quite literal, which is probably the worst brain to have for a writer. So I just kind of have to do it like A to B to C, like in the chronological order. That's how my brain works. I need to write in that order, I find that really helps as well. Like I'll start with a very short. Okay, these are the three main things that are happening. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Like there's one big thing that's going to happen in these, and then just kind of keep going over and over and over and adding an extra thing in each act all the time, and then before you know it, you've got like a full beat sheet where you've got 90 pages worth of got beats that when you write them into a script will be 90 pages or 100 pages or whatever. So, and doing it that way helps you keep track of the tone as well, because you're kind of looking at them as like headlines. When you're looking at beats, you're looking at them as headlines, so you can kind of go, oh, actually, I'm veering off a bit here. This has become a horror. I need to go back again. So you're doing that without having the whole script. If you've got the whole script and you veered off, it's kind of harder to see the thing as a whole. So I think having like those beats before I start writing the actual scenes is really helpful. Yeah.
We've just run out of time, so I'm gonna cap it off here.
Didn't even show my show reel.
Actually, yes.
No, it's it's not as good as James's. It's nowhere near.
But by all means, let's show, because I actually have it ready here to show, and that will be the end. We'll finish with a. It's the
Should've
trailer
said that.
of convenience. I didn't manage.
Yeah, it's the trailer. Yeah.